This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alex Masford. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Before I start talking anything sports, I want to remind you guys to subscribe to the podcast so you always get those alerts on your phone, laptop, however you may be listening, and you never miss an episode. Also, make sure to leave us a 5-star review in the comments. We really appreciate that as well. And make sure to follow us on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, so we can interact with you guys on there as well. Wherever you are social media-wise, whatever platforms you're on, we here at the GSMC Podcast Network are on those platforms as well, so make sure to follow us on all of those platforms. We have a fantastic show for you guys today. In a few minutes, I'm going to be getting into some breaking news that just dropped in the NFL, some really historical sports news actually, that's going to make ripple effects and have an impact on the entire NFL world really, and maybe even the entire sports world. And then I'm also going to be continuing talking about Cam Newton to the Patriots and why, as more as I think about it and the more I do research, I like it more and more for New England and for Cam. I'm also going to be giving you guys some teams that I believe could surprise and maybe overperform in the bubble in Orlando. Some teams that maybe aren't the top seeds in the East or the West, but could make a finals, could make a conference finals, some dark horse contenders, both in the East and West. And I'm going to stick around, make sure you stick around for the end of the episode. I'm going to be giving you guys the top 10 quarterback and coach dynamic duos in the entire NFL. The two most important things for having a successful football team is a good coach and a good quarterback. I'm going to be ranking the top 10 quarterback coach duos in the entire league at the end of the episode. So make sure you stick around for that. But to start off, we have some breaking news from Adam Schefter about, maybe 20, 30 minutes ago. Patrick Mahomes has a new contract with the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's not just any contract. It is arguably and has the potential to be the biggest contract in sports history, professional sports history. The Chiefs and quarterback Patrick Mahomes have reached an agreement on a 10-year contract extension that ties into Kansas City through the 2031 season, according to Adam Schefter. He went on to clarify that Patrick Mahomes had 2 years left on his remaining contract, which is his rookie contract, and he and the Chiefs are adding on 10 more, making it a new 12-year contract in total. Again, this is not a joke. Patrick Mahomes is with Kansas City through at least the 2031-2032 season, and the money has not come out yet, but it's going to be the highest paid. It's already been announced that it's the highest paid contract in NFL history, obviously. We all knew this was coming. But this has the potential to be a $500 million contract is what people are saying. Like 10 years, $50 million a year potentially. Stuff like that absolutely blows my mind and has a ripple effect on the entire NFL, which I'll get into. And I also want to start off with just Patrick Mahomes and this contract and why he deserves it, in my opinion. Now, the only thing that jumps out here is we all knew Patrick Mahomes was probably going to be a Kansas City Chief for a long, long time. We knew eventually he was going to be the highest paid player in the entire league. But who knows, like, one of the things that came out was, how much is it going to be? And as I'm recording right now, actually, hold on, we have the biggest contract in sports history is the 12-year, $426 million deal, just to clarify here. So the biggest I just mentioned, 2 seconds ago that this has the potential to be, the biggest contract in sports history. Adam Schefter just tweeted out that the current biggest contract in sports history is a 12-year, $426.5 million deal that Mike Trout signed with the Angels last year. And it is expected that Patrick Mahomes just topped that. So if I could, maybe predict, it's probably a 10-year, maybe 430 range. Some people were talking about being maybe a $500 million. I don't know if that's the case. That would be $50 million a year over the next 10 years and be a $500 million contract, which could be that as well. But to be the highest paid athlete in the world, contract-wise, he just needs $427 million, which is just a crazy number to think about. But again, Patrick Mahomes, we knew that this was going to happen. He was going to get the contract extension. There were rumors, again, earlier this offseason that they were already starting to negotiate it. There were different terms being thrown around. Some people said that Patrick Mahomes could be negotiating just for a percentage of the salary cap each year, which means it would be in flux. They've obviously reached a 10-year agreement now, and I think the biggest surprise, it's no surprise that they got a contract extension done. The Chiefs wanted to get this done earlier rather than later, just to, avoid the story of it all, the risk of it all. Patrick Mahomes is their entire organization. They can't do anything without Patrick Mahomes. Best quarterback in the entire league. I'll be getting into some of his accolades in a minute. But again, I think the only thing that's really surprising people is the fact that it's over a course of 10 years. Football is a violent sport. Football has injuries all the time. Players don't last that long, especially at different positions, especially at the running back position, offensive linemen, things like that. I can't remember the last time somebody in the NFL signed, a contract that was more than even like 5 or 6 years. I don't even remember a contract more than that. Again, Patrick Mahomes' 10-year contract extension, which really makes it a new 12-year contract from this moment on. Absolutely incredible to see. Now, it is a risk for the Kansas City Chiefs. Because if Patrick Mahomes, don't want to be that guy, but if Patrick Mahomes were to get hurt or something happened to his knee or blah, 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 whatever, anything that could happen injury-wise, then they're stuck with this contract. But I think that's a risk they're willing to take considering they have maybe the most talented quarterback of all time is what some people call Patrick Mahomes. I think I would put him right up there with Dan Marino. His arm talent is second to none. Now, to get into Patrick Mahomes, we all know that he's the greatest quarterback in the league today. Everybody knows it, but just some quick stats. Patrick Mahomes, his quote-unquote rookie season, which is the year he actually started games in the NFL, had over 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 113.8, 66% completion percentage. Literally ridiculous stats. Ridiculous, can't be taught, like out of this world, to the moon, Saturn, Mars type stats, and that was his first season. He obviously won MVP that year. And then last year, Patrick Mahomes had a little bit of some injuries, but anyway, he still had an absolute phenomenal season. 66% completion percentage, 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and a quarterback rating of 105.3. And look at some of these accomplishments that Patrick Mahomes has. So Patrick Mahomes, this is all before he's turning 25. In in September 17th, he turns 25 years old. So he has done all of these things in the National Football League before turning the age of 25. He is a Most Valuable Player award winner, so he's an MVP. He's also a Super Bowl MVP. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's already the best quarterback in the league, and he has maybe signed the biggest and also richest contract in NFL history and maybe even sports history, all before turning 25. And this leads me into a larger conversation about Patrick Mahomes, and that's something that we have to seriously consider talking about. We as sports fans have been blessed over the past 20 years that we have watched the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady, who's still in the league now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We all come to the consensus that he's better than Joe Montana and that no one's ever going to get 6 Super Bowls again and no one's ever going to be Tom Brady. There is no new Tom Brady. He's going to be the greatest quarterback of all time for the foreseeable future, maybe ever. No one will ever break his records. We have to seriously start considering Patrick Mahomes has the potential to be the greatest quarterback of all time. I don't think he's going to win 6 Super Bowls. That's impossible. Tom Brady did it, obviously, and I don't think that can ever be replicated or topped. But if there's any quarterback in the league today that is going to become the greatest quarterback of all time, it's Patrick Mahomes. Now, Patrick Mahomes is more talented than Tom Brady from an arm standpoint. Again, I don't know about the mentality, the leadership, the winning, anything like that. And again, I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to get 6 Super Bowls, and I wouldn't necessarily place my bet on Patrick Mahomes becoming the greatest quarterback of all time by any means necessary or any, stretch of the imagination. I don't necessarily believe that. But if anybody's going to do it, it's not going to be Lamar Jackson. It's not going to be Aaron Rodgers. It's not going to be Drew Brees. It's not going to be any of these guys. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes, who has the chance to become the greatest quarterback of all time. Again, before 25, he is an MVP, Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl champion, best quarterback in the league, and just signed maybe the biggest and richest contract in the entire league. And the only risk that's going to be happening long term that, could maybe affect Patrick Mahomes' winning in the future, besides obvious injury concerns, is how much of the salary cap he's actually going to be taking up. Because you already know in the NFL, it is a huge salary cap league, and the whole strategy in the NFL nowadays is get a young, cheap quarterback, spend money, get as much talent as you can around him, and go all in for the Super Bowls. Now, there can be two sides of this. It worked for the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes has been on the cheap the past couple of years. Allowed them to get guys like, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, pay all those guys, Tyrann Mathieu, Marcus Peters at a certain point. Just all these guys that would come in, high money, high praise. Obviously they also have Chris Jones who's trying to work out an extension. Damian Williams, they can pay all these people because Patrick Mahomes is on the cheap. That changes now with Patrick Mahomes' contract, and we see how the two ways this can go. Now, if you remember, the Los Angeles Rams went all in getting expensive players before they had to sign Todd Gurley and Jared Goff. And they obviously went to a Super Bowl and lost it to the New England Patriots. Shortly after that, they paid for Patrick Mahomes, Todd Gurley, guys like Brandon Cooks, had to let go of guys like Ndamukong Suh, some offensive linemen, and look what has happened to the Rams. They've gotten worse and worse each year since, the Super Bowl loss to the New England Patriots when their future looked so bright. Not that the Rams can't come back from it, but it shows how much the salary cap has an impact in the National Football League. Seriously. So Patrick Mahomes, now that he has this contract, they can't bring in guys. They can keep Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce because they're already locked up, but they can't, get a brand new offensive lineman, overpay for a pass rusher like Jadeveon Clowney. They don't have that money anymore, and that could really impact the winning. But the reason why I think that's not going to happen to the Kansas City Chiefs, what had happened to the Los Angeles Rams is that they've been kind of regressing each year since that Super Bowl loss. Why I don't believe that that's going to happen to the Chiefs is because I think Patrick Mahomes is better than Jared Goff. I think Patrick Mahomes has the ability, he's above that tier. Again, I keep telling you guys about my tier list when it comes to NFL quarterbacks. There's bottom level starters, there's backups, bottom level starters, then there's guys who start, will start for bad teams and they're just like a gap year stopgap guy and the lower starting tier. Then there's the guys that with a lot of talent around them are franchise level quarterbacks 100% from a leadership standpoint, from a talent standpoint, but they need a lot of good things around them, need good receivers, good offensive line, a good coach, the Jimmy Garoppolos of the world, the Dak Prescott of the world, the Ryan Tannehill is on the lower end of that spectrum. And then above that, you have guys who elevate their team and who are more than franchise quarterbacks, who are, all pro type quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, guys like that. Lamar Jackson is who I would put in there as well. And for me, there's a tier above that, which is all-time great, which is guys who are going to go to the Hall of Fame and can literally win no matter what is in front of them. Guys like that include Russell Wilson. I think Lamar Jackson could potentially get there, but not yet. And Patrick Mahomes is on that tier. He is on the tier of no matter who his wide receivers are, his running back, his offensive line. I think as long as Patrick Mahomes has Andy Reid, then they're going to continue to win games. They're going to continue to win that division, and they're probably going to continue to win Super Bowls. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to be a one-time Super Bowl champion. I think he'll be a multiple-time Super Bowl champion. And I think they're not going to fall down the rabbit hole that, what happened with the Los Angeles Rams. I really do believe that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to get through this, and they're going to continue to just excel in total. And again, what is so crazy about this is that, the thing is, here it is actually. Adam Schefter just tweeted, there are no official numbers on the Patrick Mahomes 10-year contract extension just yet, but multiple sources believe it'll ultimately be tied to a percentage of the salary cap for each season. The cap goes up more, the more Mahomes will make. I literally just talked to you guys about this about 5 seconds ago. There were rumors at the beginning of the season that, the Patrick Mahomes contract extension would have something to do with the salary cap, a certain percentage each year, because it's unknown how much, how big the salary cap will be. And if you're signing a long-term extension, like this, then there is risk involved when it comes to the salary cap and things like that. It makes a lot of sense, when you really look at it from a financial standpoint. It's kind of jawing numbers that you're going to see a percentage of the salary cap. I don't know what that percentage will be, but again, Patrick Mahomes getting a percentage of the salary cap is something that was almost not necessarily expected, but was heavily talked about over the past couple of weeks, and especially earlier in the offseason. And to finish off the segment, I just want to give you guys a couple lists of people who actually had contract extensions like Patrick Mahomes in the National Football League, and why it's so groundbreaking, because I really do believe that, Patrick Mahomes is better than all of these. It's all quarterbacks who have signed a 10-year extension. Donovan McNabb signed a 12-year contract extension in 2002 with the Eagles. That didn't necessarily work out. Brett Favre's quote-unquote lifetime contract with the Green Bay Packers in 2001. Obviously, that wasn't really the case, but that was something that was talked about back then. Drew Bledsoe actually signed a 10-year contract with the New England Patriots in 2001. That obviously didn't work out in Drew Bledsoe's favor. And Michael Vick, 10-year contract with the Falcons in 2004. I do believe that Patrick Mahomes is better than all of those quarterbacks. And as you can see, from just an overall standpoint, none of those contract extensions worked out either in the player's favor or the team's favor. And again, a percentage of the salary cap is going to make this really interesting to see how much Patrick Mahomes is actually going to be making each year and how it'll be in flux each year, how, he'll be making some this year, maybe more next year, maybe less, all depending on the salary cap of the NFL. But knowing the NFL and how much of a booming business it is, the salary cap's only going to go up and up each year, which means Mahomes only going to make more and more money this year. Again, I do think Patrick Mahomes deserves whatever money he wants. He is the best quarterback in the league. Again, I'll list those accomplishments again just to finish off the segment. MVP, Super Bowl champion, best quarterback in the league, and just signed maybe the richest contract in sports history all before turning 25. It's going to be incredible to see Patrick Mahomes' entire career with the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, I've said this before. I really do believe Patrick Mahomes is going to be what Dan Marino was supposed to be. Not to discredit Dan's career at all. Had a fantastic career. One of the top 5 quarterbacks of all time, in my opinion. But also from a winning standpoint, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be what Dan Marino was supposed to be. That's going to do it for this segment. On the other side of the break, I'm going to be talking about Cam Newton to the Patriots and why I'm liking it more and more the more I do some more research on it. Again, this is the GSMC Sports Podcast, and we'll be right back after this break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Thank you so much for listening through the episode so far. Just got finished talking about Patrick Mahomes' mega $1 million extension with the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, a new report just came out about 2 seconds ago saying that the contract is worth north of $400 million, so not the exact terms out just yet. There's been reports that it's a percentage of the salary cap, like I just mentioned in my last segment, but it is confirmed by Adam Schefter that it's at least north of $400 million. And I want to switch gears now to another quarterback who is on the opposite of the financial spectrum from Patrick Mahomes, and that's Cam Newton, another MVP just like Patrick Mahomes, who obviously signed for pretty much the minimum he could get with the New England Patriots. There are incentives, obviously. And I'm going to be honest, when I first heard this news break about, Cam Newton going to the Patriots, I immediately recorded an episode, and I was skeptical. I went through the pros and cons, and I wasn't exactly sure where my mind was if I thought this was really going to work or really not, and I kind of meant somewhere in the middle, and I'm still there somewhere in the middle to a certain extent, that I do believe that that Cam Newton will not win a Super Bowl in New England or anything like that, but I do believe this will work at some level, maybe as a 7 to 8 win team. I think I'm bumping that up now to I think that Cam Newton and the Patriots are going to be either a 9 or a 10 win team. I really do believe that now. I've done a lot of research on Cam Newton and how he could potentially fit into this Patriot offense, and I've mentioned this on a couple episodes. I've done multiple segments on Cam Newton to the Patriots. It was the biggest sports story for a long time. Now, Like I mentioned in all of those episodes, Cam Newton, like you know him, has mostly, if you had to associate Cam Newton's play style, it's run around and throw the ball deep and make crazy athletic plays and just wow everybody and kind of be Mr. again, Superman for the Carolina Panthers. That's what we know and that's what we love Cam Newton for. That's how we know him. Now, I mentioned that Josh McDaniels has had success with a quarterback like that, Tim Tebow, not necessarily with the throwing of the ball downfield, but with the running and making the athletic plays and being, again, Mr. Superman. And if you can take Tim Tebow to the playoffs, running an offense like that, you can take Cam Newton to the playoffs. And I really do believe Josh McDaniels is a big X factor, like I've mentioned before in all of this. Now, what I've also mentioned is I do think Cam is going to have a sort of bit of a system change. I don't think they're going to be throwing the ball downfield a ton. The Patriots don't really have the receivers for that. Julian Edelman, Mohamed Sanu, and N'Keal Harry are not all necessarily deep threats. N'Keal Harry maybe being the biggest one who could be a deep threat. And again, I'm sure Cam Newton wants to push the ball downfield, but I did some research on Cam Newton when he doesn't push the ball downfield, when it is short intermediate throws, when it is, death by 1,000 paper cuts, more of the dink and dunk system that New England has been running over the past 20 years. And like I've mentioned before, I do believe that Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator, who is maybe the biggest X factor in all of this, is going to take some things that he's done with guys like Tim Tebow and more mobile quarterbacks when he was with Denver and combine it with the system that he's been running with Tom Brady over the past 20 years, dink and dunk, death by 1,000 paper cuts, short throws like that, getting the ball out quickly, because again, Cam Newton's health is also a factor in this, and if you get the ball out quickly, there's less likely of a chance that Cam, will get hurt, things like that. Now, when you look at the statistics of Cam Newton as a short intermediate thrower, they really blow you away. You can certainly make the argument, actually, that Cam Newton is a better quarterback when he's running that type of offense than he is when he's throwing the ball downfield, which is something I would have never thought of at all when I think of Cam Newton or when you watch Cam Newton highlights, things like that. But I want to give some quick statistics. Cam Newton in 2018, Ron Rivera hired a new offensive coordinator named Norv Turner, who worked with guys specifically Phillip Rivers when he was the San Diego Chargers. That's when Norv Turner was the head coach there for a while, I believe, and Phillip Rivers had a lot of success there. And he is known as another one of those quarterback gurus, quarterback whisperers that somehow everybody has, even though I don't believe in half of them. They're everywhere, apparently. And he was the quarterback guy for Phillip Rivers, who obviously is not a mobile quarterback at all, is practically a statue, and is the definition of a pocket passer, and he was a good one at that for a long time. And they wanted to make Cam Newton more of a pocket passer because in that 2018 season, Cam Newton had started falling off from his 2015 MVP season. He was getting hurt a lot. And again, they just wanted to kind of revamp and retool Cam Newton and the entire Carolina roster and make him more of a pocket passer. They changed his throwing motion a little bit. They changed his footwork a lot, his pocket presence, his habits of just escaping and running away instead of maybe throwing the ball away occasionally or just trying to make a play, things like that. And Cam Newton was really effective in those 8 games in 2018. He was actually a top 10 quarterback in accuracy through those 8 weeks. Obviously, after those 8 weeks, Cam Newton missed the rest of the year, and some other guys did better, so he wasn't top 10 in accuracy. But I looked at some advanced analytics, and Cam Newton in the short and intermediate game was actually 7th in accuracy, and the only thing bringing down his passer rating and accuracy percentage was the amount of deep balls he was throwing. And in fact, through 8 weeks of that season, he was bottom 5 in the league in attempted throws of 20 or more yards. And if you remember, Cam Newton was actually having a really good season that year. I think the Panthers started off maybe even 4-2 that season. So again, Cam Newton looked really good in those first 8 games of 2018, and he was running a system that was more pocket passer-like, short dink and dunk throws, death by 1,000 paper cuts. And it was really interesting to see that with, the same way that Tom Brady's been running it the past 20 years. And I found it absolutely fascinating that that's what was happening with Cam Newton. And again, those advanced analytics show how good Cam Newton was during those seasons, and it kind of blew me away, seriously, when thinking about how, Cam Newton could really match us. And I'm starting to think now that this is going to work out more than we think. Again, Cam Newton in 2018 played 14 games that season. Again, through the first 8 games, he was extremely accurate. Then he was dealing with some injuries the later half of that season. The following season was obviously 2019, where he only played in 2 games and then had the surgery. I believe in 2018 it was the shoulder surgery and 2019 was the foot surgery, but I might have that wrong. Cam Newton in 2018, in only 14 games, threw for almost 4,000 yards, 24 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and that was his best season all the way since since the 2015 MVP year where he threw obviously 35 touchdowns and just 10 interceptions. So again, in 2018, had a completion percentage of 67.9. This is the stuff I'm talking about, guys. That is a career high in completion percentage. Cam Newton in 2018 almost had a 70% completion percentage. Again, 24 touchdowns, a lot of interceptions that could be, worked with. And that was in 2018. That is not long ago. Cam Newton and the Panthers went 6-8 in those 14 games, obviously. A low in attempts, 471 compared to the season before, 429. Obviously, the injury has some things to do with that. But again, the big thing there is a 67.9 completion percentage for Cam Newton when his career average is not even in the 60s. Cam Newton's career average and completion percentage is 59.6, and that is considered an outlier that season, the 67.9. To put that in perspective, Cam Newton's MVP season, he had a completion percentage of 59.4, so almost at 60. Cam Newton had an almost 68% completion percentage in 2018. That is a big deal because that is what the Patriot offense has relatively been all about. Completion percentage, get the ball out quick, be effective, execute on those easy, simple plays. And that's what Cam Newton could really do here for the New England Patriots. So I've completely kind of done a 180 here almost, where when I first heard this story, I wasn't all in. I didn't necessarily think that it would work to a full extent for Cam Newton. I think that it would be, a 7 to 8 win team max. And then, maybe Cam Newton would leave for another team that could potentially give him a shot. I really do believe now, after seeing those stats from the 2018 season and going into doing some research on the analytics, again, Cam Newton was top 10 in accuracy through the first 8 weeks of 2018 before he got hurt and kind of played hurt for about 6 games and with that shoulder and then eventually left. And again, a career high in completion percentage that year. That is the Cam Newton they want. Honestly, you could really make the argument that the Patriots would rather have 2018 Cam Newton than 2015 Cam Newton to a certain extent. If they can get a right balance of 2015 Cam and 2018 Cam, then Cam Newton could legitimately have the best year of his career, not necessarily from an accolade standpoint, but from an efficiency standpoint, which is what the NFL is all about now. The NFL today from the quarterback league, it used to be, get the biggest and strongest quarterback you can find. And Cam Newton is certainly big and strong. But the NFL has sort of moved into the newer age of quarterbacking, which is more accuracy, ball placement, football IQ, not necessarily throwing the ball downfield, death by 1,000 paper cuts like I keep mentioning, and that's why the guys like Drew Brees have thrived, why Russell Wilson has working, why guys like Baker Mayfield were drafted number 1 overall, and Kyler Murray was drafted number 1 overall, and Tua Tagovailoa was drafted 5th overall. All of those things are signaling a new transition to the new National Football League, and one of the reasons why Tom Brady was so effective for so long is because he isn't the biggest and strongest quarterback. He is more of that accurate, short route, high football IQ type quarterback, which is what the NFL was moving towards, is why Tom Brady was having so much success later in his career. And if Cam Newton can get back to that 2018 form, not even that 2015 form, you could seriously see some real improvements from Cam Newton. You could see a Cam Newton with a 65% completion percentage or higher. A Cam Newton who has a lower touchdown to interception ratio. The only flaw that I would say of that 2018 season is Cam threw 24 touchdowns and 13 picks, which is good, not great. If they can find the balance from that 2015 season, obviously Cam Newton's best overall year where they went to the Super Bowl, and that 2018 season, which is what New England will be striving for, the Patriots could win their division again and be right back in there with the AFC contention, with such a great defense. The only question is, can Cam do it? Can Cam do it? Seriously. And I know that's an easy statement. Can Cam do it with the weapons? Can he do it with an almost 34-year-old Julian Edelman? With a 30-year-old or 31-year-old Mohamed Sanu? Can he do it with a N'Keal Harry who hasn't fully developed yet? 2 unproven tight ends. What will Sony Michel look like? Will the Patriots offensive line hold up? Will the defense continue to be the best defense maybe in the entire National Football League like they've done the past 2 years or so? These are the important questions that are going to have X factors in the Cam Newton Patriots saga. And again, I've mentioned that the best case scenario for everybody involved here is that Cam Newton is the successor to Tom Brady. I think that's what Cam wants to be. I don't think Cam wants this to be a 1-year deal and leave. I think Cam will want more money. But if Cam can have a big season this year, and I'm talking a combination of 2015 and 2018, the completion percentage of 2018, I'm not saying that Cam Newton needs to throw 35 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, but if he can have that 1.5 to 1 or maybe 2 to 1 touchdown or higher, 2 to 1 touchdown and interception ratio like he had in 2015, again, doesn't have to throw 35 and 10, but if Cam Newton threw, 24 touchdowns and maybe 10 interceptions, or got it down to 12. Even one less interception would be a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. Get those touchdowns up to 30. Things like that. You could really see a revived Cam Newton, and he would win Comeback Player of the Year. And they would beat the Buffalo Bills out, in my opinion, in the division. They would win that division. Then they would go to the playoffs, and they would put up with teams like Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans. And who knows if they could deal with somebody, whoever comes out of the division, Baltimore, Seattle, that would be in a Super Bowl, obviously, but, could they deal with the Kansas City Chiefs? Things like that. And a revived Cam Newton would also bring a lot of juice to the Patriots offense as well. They're definitely going to be more dynamic. And while I keep saying they're going to run a similar system, hopefully that they've done the past 20 years to keep Cam Newton off the grass, not injured, and get that completion percentage up and that efficiency up, at a certain point, Cam Newton's going to be Cam Newton. He's going to want to run around, and he is going to make a couple plays a game. Cam Newton, about every year, every game will make 2 or 3 plays that you'll just be wowed. I don't know if it'll lead to a win or a loss or anything like that, but 2 or 3 plays a game, Cam Newton does something special pretty consistently when he's healthy, and that part of Cam Newton will still be there in New England. There will be more dynamic plays than they had with Tom Brady. Not necessarily that they'll be better with Cam Newton over Tom Brady. I don't think that. But again, it's going to be looking a little bit different. It's going to be so much fun to watch. I cannot wait to see week 1. There's a potential matchup of Cam Newton's first game in the Patriots, and if Tua can beat out Ryan Fitzpatrick for the Dolphins, we could have Tua Tagovailoa versus Cam Newton week 1. That would be must-watch television. I can't wait to see Cam Newton in a New England Patriot uniform, and the more I keep thinking about it, the more I think it's going to work. We're going to take another quick break. On the other side of this short break, I'm going to be giving you guys some NBA teams who have qualified for the Orlando bubble, who could make some more noise than people are thinking. We'll get right into that after this quick break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Thank you so much for listening to the episode so far. I want to switch gears here for a little bit and switch over to basketball as we are rapidly approaching the date for when the NBA playoffs are ready and the NBA season will finish. Like I've mentioned before, a bunch of teams qualified for Orlando. The goal is to start July 30th. They will be having a couple of regular season games and then a play-in tournament for, I think, the 8th seed in both conferences, I believe. And then we will go right into the playoffs with the normal playoff format that's been going on. There's been some news about some NBA players recently. Due to the coronavirus, some players have actually have decided that they will not be playing, whether it be for different reasons, health, family, just everything that's going on in the world. And you have to respect their decisions for whatever they want to do. But some of the big name players are Spencer Dinwiddie, who is unlikely to play for the Brooklyn Nets, which is a big deal. In all honesty, that means they could potentially miss the playoffs if Washington could get their stuff together. Another big player is Victor Oladipo, who only played 13 games this year for the Indiana Pacers. He decided to not return. He's going to decide not to return for the Pacers going into the Orlando bubble. More because he just wants to focus on the health of his leg that he obviously injured last season, and that's why he's the reason why he's only played 13 games so far this year. He's a free agent coming up as well, so he's got a big year next year. He needs to prove to everybody that he is still the Victor Oladipo we all know and love post-traumatic leg injury. So we're going to see about that. And there's been a couple other players, Avery Bradley, who I also have talked about, decided that he wasn't going to play for the Lakers, and there will be more guys. The thing with the whole coronavirus thing in the NBA is that this is not going to be perfect. There is not going to be a perfect system for all of this. People are going to get it in all sports, and it's just up to each and individual sports to figure out a way to keep on going. In the safest and most healthy way possible, of course. And the thing I've consistently said about this NBA season is it's going to be the toughest, I think, out of all of the sports to really come back. Given to how close quarter is, the bubble, everything like that. Baseball is a sport where everything's a little bit more spread out. The NFL is kind of a thing that's just like almost like a business that's going to keep on chugging. There's a lot of backups in the NFL that could replace guys, unless like a star quarterback were to potentially get the coronavirus, and then they would not be able to play. That would be a bigger deal, but it's going to be the hardest for basketball. And like I've said, for the NBA, it will go as far as its stars go, both literally in the face of the league, but also in this playoff format. The NBA wants teams like the Lakers to win. They want teams like the 76ers to win, and less of the teams like the Nuggets and the Thunder. They want that super mega star power to continue so that way they capture the audience and get as much ratings as possible. And with all that being said, I want to go through some of the teams that have qualified for the Orlando bubble. You know, when I've been talking about the NBA on the show, as we are awaiting obviously that July 30th return to the NBA, the teams I've talked about the most are like the Los Angeles Lakers, Los Angeles Clippers, and even the Milwaukee Bucks. I want to talk about some other teams that have qualified for the bubble that I think could be dark horse teams to maybe win a playoff series or two, potentially get to a conference finals, maybe even an NBA championship. Some teams that I think are really built for this playoffs due to everything that's just been going on with their team, and I think they could make some noise. So let's just get right into it. Number one, I have the Toronto Raptors. We're going to go east and west, so let's just start with the east. Number one, the Toronto Raptors here. So they are the second seed in the east, and I feel like a lot of people have forgotten about Toronto because they lost Kawhi in the offseason last year. Again, in my opinion, they are still a top 3 defensive team in the league. I think Nick Nurse is a top 5 coach in the NBA. He's absolutely fantastic. They have guys that have completely stepped up night in, night out. Pascal Siakam, after winning Most Improved last year, is a candidate for Most Improved again because of how another jump that he's made this season. He is their number one player. Also, Fred VanVleet has gone from kind of a 14-point game guy off the bench to now a consistent 18 to 22-point scorer a night, which is absolutely huge. They also still have guys like Marc Gasol, some deep veteran roots, and also, Serge Ibaka as well. And not to mention they have the playoff experience. They are the defending champions. And I know that's a sports cliche, the whole championship DNA thing, but it does matter, especially when there's some other teams in the East that don't have that deep playoff experience, including the Milwaukee Bucks. You know, the Raptors beat the Bucks last year in the conference finals for a reason. And yes, one of those reasons were Kawhi Leonard, but they know how to D up against Giannis. They know how to D up against Chris Middleton. They've experienced the Bucks before. They've experienced teams like the 76ers before. They have experience of playing these teams at their best, and they're still the second seed in the East. So I don't want to completely discredit the Toronto Raptors. I do think they're one piece away from just being right back where they were with Kawhi Leonard. And the loss of Kawhi, maybe puts them in that second tier of not a championship contender like I put before, but they are the number one dark horse team in my opinion that could make a splash, that could get a conference championship, maybe even represent the East in the Eastern Conference Finals if they had a good series against the Bucks or something like that. Next up, I have the least, surprise team. They're obviously going to be good in the playoffs. That's the Boston Celtics. I'm only saying this because I think some people would consider it a surprise if they made the championship over the Milwaukee Bucks, but I'm not going to be surprised at all if at the end of this season, the Boston Celtics are the 2020 NBA champion. They are my dark horse team to win a championship. Some of these other teams I think could just make big waves in the playoffs, like the Raptors. I think they could maybe get to a conference finals. Some other teams I think could win a playoff series or two more than other people expect. But out of all these dark horse teams, I think one of them has a real chance of actually winning a championship, and that would be the Boston Celtics. Again, they have Giannis's number. They have beaten him multiple times in the playoffs. They've beaten the Bucks multiple times in the playoffs. It would not surprise me at all if the Boston Celtics came out of the East. They are one of the most athletic teams in the league. If Kemba Walker can return to some form of the Charlotte form, he's had a good year this year statistically, but when you really look at the shooting splits and the numbers and the efficiency, he isn't as good as he's been in years past. If Kemba Walker, maybe the break served him well, he's rested up, he's healthy. If he can take that next step and be a little bit more efficient, and Jason Tatum can can just be doing what Jason Tatum does, which is one of the best young players in the league. Add that to the outstanding 3-and-D ability of Jaylen Brown, one of the best two-way players in the game. Obviously, Gordon Hayward as well has some experience, and that great bench of the Celtics led by Marcus Smart. You have a real deep team here in Boston. Of course, Brad Stevens is one of the best head coaches in the league, in my opinion, as well. And don't sleep on the Boston Celtics defensive ability. They have switchability, they have size, and they have length. And that's going to be a real problem for NBA teams. And one of the things that's been holding the Celtics back during the regular season, in my opinion, is the lack of a true center, a really good center. There's obviously been rumors that they're going to trade for a guy like Rudy Gobert for years and years now, Anthony Davis when he was on the market. In the playoffs, the center's role diminishes less and less. A lot of guys get played off the floor like Rudy Gobert and other people, and they look more for athletic guys. So again, the Celtics can play small ball, and a lot of small ball is played in the playoffs. And I will not be surprised at all if the Celtics just out-athletic everybody else in the East and really actually represent. And again, I do believe they could give it a series. They could have a series against the Clippers or against the Lakers if they got to a championship. I really do believe they could hold their own in a 7-game series, especially with a neutral fan. Don't have to keep traveling from West Coast to East Coast. It'll all just be in one area, night in, night out. Won't surprise me at all, just given how young and athletic the Boston Celtics are. Next up, I have the Miami Heat, who I believe could win an extra playoff series or two, can maybe get to a conference finals as a cap that I would put on there. People forget the Miami Heat are undefeated against every major team in the East except for the Boston Celtics, 2-0 against the Raptors, 2-1 or 3-1 against the 76ers. Things like that matter. I understand that the regular season there was a huge gap, but don't sleep on the Miami Heat. They have their number. They have beaten the Raptors. They've beaten the Pacers. They've got the 76ers number. The only team that they struggle with is the Celtics. But again, the Heat are just like the Celtics, one of those teams that's really big, really athletic, and really long. But what the Heat also have, along with their fantastic defense, one of the best head coaches in the league, Eric Spoelstra, is their three-point shooting ability. Duncan Robinson is maybe the most underrated three-point shooter in the league. He's a top 5 shooter in the game, and he does not get enough credit. Tyler Hero was hurt and missed the last 3 weeks of the season before the shutdown. He's now back, and he's healthy. Same with Myers Leonard. So the Heat, when you really look at it from a just roster standpoint, are extremely deep. They have 3 good guards when you look at it. Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero, Goran Dragic, and Duncan Robinson, if you consider him a guard. And then they have Jimmy Butler leading the way, who's doing Mr. Everything, leading his team in assists and having a career high in passing and assists in his entire career, and as well as Bam Adebayo, who's maybe the lead candidate for most improved player of the year this year and one of the top 5 defenders in the league. Now, things like that will matter. The Heat have a center that won't get played off the floor like a Rudy Gobert, like maybe a bigger, clunkier guy like a Hassan Whiteside. They have a Bam Adebayo, who's uber athletic, one of the best passing bigs in the league, and can run the floor and pretty much guard 1 through 5. Again, things like that matter in the playoffs when you go against these athletic teams, so do not sleep on the Miami Heat, not to mention that their head coach has championship experience and championship DNA. He's a 3-time NBA champion as a coach, 1 as assistant, 2 as the head coach, obviously, during the LeBron years. And all this entire year, the Miami Heat have been outperforming. They were not supposed to be this good, yet they are. I wouldn't surprise me at all if they also overperformed in the playoffs. Next up is the biggest wild card in the entire NBA, in my opinion, and that is the Philadelphia 76ers. They are one of the most talented teams in the league. I've said it, and I will say it again. If they can just get it right, if they can get the chemistry between Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons right, they could make serious noise. They have a championship roster. That's what I'm saying. A championship roster, a top 5 roster in the entire league. If Brett Brown can just coach these guys up to have good chemistry, I don't know if that means playing Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid not with each other as much, maybe just go in spurts, 5 minutes with just Ben on the floor, 5 minutes with just Joel. Maybe that's how the 76ers have to do it and get more shooters around Ben Simmons on the floor. But if the 76ers can get it right, they are one of the top teams in the East and one of the most talented teams in the league. So I'm watching out for Philadelphia as an X factor in the East. Now let's quickly move to the West, where number 1 I have the Denver Nuggets. And again, they're one of those underlying, really young, really talented teams. I think they have maybe the best center in the game in Nikola Jokic. He's the best passing big, best shooting big in the league, in my opinion, maybe next to Karl Anthony Towns. And he's also lost a ton of weight. We're going to really see how athletic Jokic is. I like, their head coach. I like everything. I like Jamal Murray. I like a lot of other guys on that team as well. And I will not be surprised at all if they upset one of the top seeds in the West. They already are, I think, the 3rd seed in the West. Again, Jokic is a real special player, man. If this weight loss has made him even better, then the league really needs to watch out, and they could be making waves in the playoffs. Next up, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder, who remind me a lot of the Miami Heat in the East, a team that's just been outperforming all year, a really good mix of veterans and young players. Dennis Schroeder's probably going to win Sixth Man of the Year. On top of that, Chris Paul is a veteran who wants to prove himself and one of the best veterans in the league and one of the most clutch players in the league. I think this year he actually led the entire NBA in fourth quarter shots within 5 minutes made for the lead or for a tie. Now that's an important stat, not to mention Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, one of the best young guards in the league as well. Watch out for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think they can make some noise as well. Next up, I have the Dallas Mavericks, who I think are actually an underrated team in the playoffs. Again, Luka Doncic is a special player. I think he's already a top 10 player in the NBA, and he is definitely the best young player in the NBA. He almost averaged a triple-double this year, and he's only going to get the ball more in the playoffs. And while his lack of playoff experience will show, there are no fans in the stands. There is no away game sevens. It's all in one place. So an empty gym could actually help young teams and young players like Luka Doncic who haven't had to experience those big game moments yet. And again, Luka Doncic is absolutely incredible. And if Kristaps Porzingis can return to maybe what he did with the New York Knicks, then the Mavericks could be a real problem for the entire Western Conference. And last up, I have the New Orleans Pelicans, who I rant and rave about all the time. Again, I think they are going to be that 8th seed in the Western Conference. I really do believe that Zion Williamson is going to carry them to the promised land. I love Zion, and I think this break will serve him well. Again, there's been reports that he's lost 10 to 15 pounds of weight and put on more muscle, and if Zion gets even more athletic than he already is, then he might be the most athletic player in the NBA. And when you get to the playoffs, the things that matter are defense, coaching, and athleticism, and the New Orleans Pelicans definitely have that athleticism. Now, do they have the coach? Is Alvin Gentry a good head coach when it comes to the playoffs? That's what we will see. But they do have some veterans on the floor like J.J. Redick and some others. I think Lonzo Ball will step up being a good facilitator in the playoffs, as well as guys like Drew Holiday. I think he will make a massive impact, one of the best two-way guards in the entire NBA. But it all comes down to Zion Williamson. He is the X factor of the New Orleans Pelicans, and he will be fun to watch. The NBA wants to see Zion Williamson advance, and don't be surprised if Zion gets the whistle more than some other players, and he has primetime television. It's going to be so much fun to watch. I cannot wait for the NBA playoffs to start. We're just a few short weeks away. We're going to go take one last break, and on the other side of the break, I'm going to be giving you guys my top 10 NFL head coach and quarterback duos, so stick around for that, and we'll be right back after this break.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network for the last segment of today's show. And I want to give you guys my top 10 quarterback head coaching duos in the entire National Football League. Now, when it comes to football, my philosophy is if you have these two things, you will be somewhat of a successful football team. If you have a good coach and a good quarterback, you will at least be somewhat of a good team. You will at least win, in my opinion, at least 7 games that way when you have a good coach and a good quarterback. Now, some teams have great coaches and great quarterbacks, and they become the great teams, and some obviously have elite at both. Now, I want to go through my top 10 quarterback coaching duos duos. I saw this circulating on Twitter. Some people were giving them. So let's just get right into it. At number 10, I have Big Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Tomlin for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, again, I have rashed on Big Ben a little bit because I am not as sold as some others on how he will look when he comes back after not a devastating injury, but essentially having the Tommy John surgery of quarterbacks. How will Ben Roethlisberger look at his age? I believe he's 37 or 38. Again, that's why I have them a little bit lower on this list and why I've kind of been, a little bit harsh on Big Ben and the Steelers. But we can't forget that this team went 8-8 last year with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph at quarterback. Now, I don't know what you think, but I think Big Ben is at least a game or two better than those two quarterbacks, which is why I think I have them winning 9 games this year. I think they could get into the 10 or the 11 range as well. But Mike Tomlin is one of the best head coaches in the league. Again, going 8-8, coaching up that team, even though having 2 terrible quarterbacks play the season for you in an extremely tough division as well when you have to share that division with with the Baltimore Ravens, with the MVP Lamar Jackson, and maybe even, I think it was Coach of the Year, John Harbaugh. And you still went 8-8 without your starting quarterback. That is impressive. Mike Tomlin does not get enough credit. So I have them in at number 10. They've also been a duo for a very long time. And I think this season in the NFL in particular, veteran teams with more stability at the head coach and quarterback position, as in it's not a new head coach this year, or they've been together multiple years, things like that will thrive because of the lack of OTAs, lack of practices, lack of preseason. It's just a weird year overall. So at number 10, I have Big Ben and Mike Tomlin of the Pittsburgh Steelers. At number 9, I have Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur, and while their relationship might not be the best, we cannot forget that they went 13-3 last year. Now, I've said that 13-3 season was a little bit of a fluke because, again, they led the league in one score wins. As in the most wins in the league by 7 points or less. And I really believe they were more of a 9-7, 10-6 team masquerading as a 13-3 team. But nonetheless, they went 13-3 for a reason. Aaron Rodgers is obviously phenomenal. I still think he's an elite quarterback in this league. I think I have him at number 5 or number 6 in the entire NFL from my list, I think last episode or maybe 2 episodes ago. Not to mention, I think Matt LaFleur is a really good offensive mind. I think just him and Aaron need to connect more on how much risks they want to take during the offense, how many more big plays. Again, if you remember, Matt LaFleur drafted Jordan Love, who will soon be Aaron Rodgers' replacement in the next 3 years, in my opinion. I think because they wanted more bigger, dynamic plays, which Aaron Rodgers is certainly capable of. He just led the league in throwaways last year, trying to save some more stuff. So I really do believe that they will have a good connection still, and I do believe they are a top 10 quarterback head coach duo in the league. That's why I have them at number 9, Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, and Matt LaFleur. At number 8, I have Bill Belichick, who in my opinion is the best coach in the league, and Cam Newton, who I spent talking about 2 segments ago. Yes, this is a top 10 quarterback head coaching matchup. Now, I do believe Cam Newton is a top 15 to 17 quarterback in the league. Pair him with the overwhelming favorite for best coach in the league, Bill Belichick, and you have a top 10 coach and quarterback duo. Again, I think Cam Newton's going to do really well in this Patriots system. I talked about it about 2 segments ago. Cam Newton is actually statistically and analytically a better quarterback when he throws the ball short, and it has that offense that's more death by 1,000 paper cuts. Get the ball out quick. Again, almost a 68% completion percentage for Cam Newton in 2018. That is the Cam Newton that the Patriots want, maybe even more than the 2015, 2016 Cam Newton. I do believe it's a top 10 quarterback coach duo in the league. I think the Patriots win their division. I think they go 9-7, maybe even 10-6. So at number 8, I have Bill Belichick and the new Patriots quarterback, Cam Newton. At number 7, I have Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson. They've been along for a while now. And again, Carson Wentz is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I'm going to say this stat again. Was top 3 in the NFL when the play breaks down and the first read isn't open. Who makes the plays? Carson Wentz. He took a bunch of scrubs at the wide receiver position to the playoffs last year, beating out a very talented Dallas Cowboys team for the division. I don't understand the Carson Wentz weight. I've talked about it before. And again, Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. He can coach. I don't understand some Philly fans who are against him. He is a phenomenal coach. They just need some better offensive skill positions, especially at the wide receiver position. And the Eagles could be right back to Super Bowl contenders after, like they were, I believe, in 2016 when they beat Tom Brady. Maybe it was 2017. That team right there has been deteriorating ever since. They kind of had a little bit of a bounce back year last year. I expect them to win their division, and I really hope that they can get Carson Wentz some receivers. So that's why I have them at number 7. I have Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson. most underrated maybe quarterback coaching duo in the entire league. At number 6, I have the former NFC champions, the San Francisco 49ers duo of Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo. Again, another player I don't understand the hate of Jimmy G. He is not an elite quarterback by any means. He is not in the Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson tier, but he is like a Dak Prescott, somebody who's a great distributor of the ball, doesn't turn the ball over, good leader, doesn't necessarily elevate as team as much of some other guys do, but is a great distributor of the ball. And he was actually top 5 in the league in that one of my favorite stats when the play breaks down. Same like Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz was top 3. Jimmy Garoppolo was number 5, and he was one throw away from winning a Super Bowl and beating Patrick Mahomes. And I know it's on him that he overthrew the guy by about 5 or 6 yards, but I still believe Jimmy Garoppolo is a good quarterback, and he's the quarterback going forward for San Francisco, and I do believe they're a top head coach and quarterback duo in the league, so I have them coming in at number 6. I don't necessarily believe they're going to have a huge fall off like maybe the Rams did after their Super Bowl. I think a little bit of a regression because of how hard the division is, and I think Seattle got a lot better, and they could be bringing Antonio Brown in soon. So at number 6, I have Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo of the San Francisco 49ers. Speaking of the Seahawks, at number 5 for the top head coach and quarterback duos, I have Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson of Seattle. They've been together a long time. Russell Wilson has never had a losing season ever since becoming a member of the Seahawks, which means Pete Carroll has never had a losing season as a head coach ever since Russell Wilson became the quarterback of his team. Russell Wilson is a special player, man. I really do believe he's the second best quarterback in the entire NFL. Again, similar to Carson Wentz, if they can get some more skill positions and a better offensive line, Russell Wilson could go right back to being a Super Bowl champion again. I think Russell Wilson's going to win MVP this year as well. He is my betting favorite. Again, never had a losing season, never turns the ball over, great leader, and I really do believe Antonio Brown will be a member of the Seahawks this year, which is why I have them, I think, going 12-4 and winning that division. And Pete Carroll's a great coach. He is a player's coach. Players love to play for him. He's dealt with a lot of adversity. He dealt with, Richard Sherman wanting out and leaving, and Cam Chancellor eventually leaving as well, and obviously Earl Thomas leaving as well, Marshawn Lynch. He's lost a lot of the core guys since those Super Bowl teams, yet he has still found a way to win games and give Russell Wilson a good defense and a good enough team to let him have some Russell Wilson magic. So I have them coming in at number 5. At number 4, I have the new duo in Tampa Bay, Tom Brady and Bruce Arians. I think Bruce Arians is one of the best offensive coaches in the league. He got Jameis Winston to be second in the league in passing yards. What do you think he will be able to do with Tom Brady? I've talked about Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at length. They have a phenomenal offensive cast. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard, Brait, Ronald Jones the second or third, all in the backfield as well. So you have a phenomenal offensive system. Also drafted Tristan Wirfs, who might be the best tackle out of this draft. This team is absolutely phenomenal. I do believe they're going to maybe even exceed some expectations. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they made a Super Bowl. And of course, Tom Brady is one of the best quarterbacks in the league still, built on accuracy. If Jameis Winston was second in the league in passing yards in that system, what do you think Tom Brady will do? He won't throw for as many yards, but again, if Jameis Winston didn't turn the ball over 37 times that season, the Buccaneers would have made the playoffs. Tom Brady's not going to do that. He's going to be more efficient, spread the ball around. He's a phenomenal distributor of the ball. He knows where to throw it, where to place the ball, who's the open guy. He will study his ass off and make sure he knows who's open, where the hot route is, everything like that. He will memorize the opponent's defense. He is the perfect quarterback for a Bruce Arians system, where Bruce Arians wants to have fun and throw the ball around and be energetic. Tom Brady can meet him in the middle and have also bring his football IQ. Two of the smartest minds of football, Bruce Arians, Tom Brady, pairing up in Tampa Bay. That's why I have them at number 4. At number 3, I think I have the longest quarterback head coach duo in the entire league now that Tom Brady has left New England, and that's Drew Brees and Sean Payton. Now, they are a phenomenal duo. They've been going together for years and years now. I think Drew Brees, this is going to be his last year. It appears he's going to retire after this year. Sean Payton's still creative as ever as a head coach. Super fun to watch his offenses run. They added Emmanuel Sanders in the offseason as well. They only got better offensively. It's going to be a lot of fun to see Drew Brees play with all his new toys on the offensive side. Emmanuel Sanders, Mike Thomas, and also Alvin Kamara. Going to be a lot of fun to see. Good offensive line. That defense will play well. It's going to be so much fun to see him versus Tom twice a year next year. I really do believe that the Saints can make the Super Bowl. We've always said all these years, but again, the past couple of seasons they've been choking in the playoffs, so maybe they can finally get that corrected. So I have them coming in at number 3. At number 2, I have the MVP Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is one of the best head coaches in the league. I mean, he won a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco, for God's sakes. I know that defense was good, but Joe Flacco got paid afterward. Now he has Lamar Jackson, who just keeps making bigger and bigger jumps. I really do believe Lamar Jackson is not going to be a flameout like RG3 was. I really do believe he is going to be consistently good in this league. I'm not necessarily positive he can win a Super Bowl when Patrick Mahomes is in the East and some younger players like Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa are also coming up in the AFC. But Lamar Jackson is an incredible player, man, and he is special. If he can continue to make strides as a passer, he could be a Super Bowl champion soon. And John Harbaugh is one of the best head coaches in the league. We already know this, and you already know, in my opinion, the Ravens is the most stacked roster in the entire league offensively. They're going to have a great year. They come in at number 2 for my top head coach and quarterback duo, and you already know who number 1 was going to be. Andy Reid, potentially the best offensive mind in football, with Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in football, who just signed a 10-year, $503 million contract, $500 million for that man, and he is worth every penny. Patrick Mahomes paired with any quarterback would be top 10 on this list, but Andy Reid is the perfect quarterback for him. Just won a Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they were back there next year, and they are probably the betting favorites to be champions yet again. This is going to be, I think, the 3rd season that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have been going together. 4 years, but 3rd year starting. He's only going to get better. They're only going to get better. Andy Reid's only going to come up with more creative ways to get Patrick Mahomes to make some special plays, and Patrick Mahomes is not even 25 yet. That's so scary to think about. He's going to be so good for a long time, and this might be the best quarterback and head coach duo, not just this year, but for the foreseeable future. I have them coming in at number 1, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. That is going to do it for today's episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a 5-star review, and follow us on all social media platforms. Again, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you all in the next episode.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.